Today we're talking about how does one become many. Creator of the universe is one. The world's made of many. So how did one become many? Because before the world was made, there was total one. And then God created the many out of that one. So how exactly was that done? Well, there's one amazing analogy, and the analogy that's used most by Kabbalists is light. Light is how it's actually said by our Kabbalists. Light is how God created the world. The world actually was created from light. This light is called in Hebrew, or Rishon, the first light. And God basically shot out light. Now, this is not photons of light the way we know them to be. This is beyond space and time. This is some kind of primordial light, a pre-creation light. That light shined forth. Obviously, it would blow anything away that's in its path. And that light is filtered out, and filtered out, and filtered out, and filtered out, and filtered out, until ultimately there is existence. I'll give you an example. Let's find something with light. I don't know if you can see on this board. Do you see the shadow of my hand here? I don't know if you guys can see that over there. Can you see that? Here, this will be even better. See the shadow of my hand there? Okay, let me get a good shadow of my hand there. I don't know, it's a lot of lights at once, so it's making weird shadows. But anyway, that shadow of my hand are where the light is missing. Do you see that? The reason you see that image of my hand on the screen, it's because I've removed light. And it's now you can see the image on the screen of where my hand is. So the same thing, that God created the world with light and then removed light so that there could be an image on the other side. And that's exactly just like that God created the world. Let me give you an example of a guy comes back from a trip from Yosemite Valley. And he invites his best friend to come make an amazing slideshow with him. So he's helping him out, and he's putting out, the pretzels and the crackers and whatnot. And he's also helping him arrange slides. And anyway, the guy's working on the slideshow. But what happened is he put on his projector, and the light pops. And he loses his projector lamp. And he says to his buddy, he says, please run to the store and get a new light. His friend runs to the photo shop, but he ran so fast he forgot to bring the light bulb with him. And he took off, goes to the photo shop, and in the photo shop, they ask him, so what size light do you need? And he says, I don't know, for a projector. But the guy says, in a projector, you have 200-watt projectors, you have 400-watt projectors, you have 800-watt projectors, you have 1,000-watt projectors. What kind of projector? He says, I don't know, it's standard. He says, there is no standard. Just give me a light. So he says, okay, here's a light. He gives him the 1,000-watt light. Takes it back to his buddy. Says, here's the light. He unscrews the other light, looks at it. It says 200 watts. He's like, what do you want me to do with this thing? People are arriving in like 5 minutes. He says, I don't know, just put it in. Put it in. He puts it in, drops a slide inside the projector, and what shows up on the screen? What shows up on the screen? Light. Why? Because it's way too much light for this particular slide. And so what comes out on the screen is light. So he says, no, what are we going to do? They're coming right now. We don't have time for you to go back to the store. He says, wait, I got a great idea. He takes five slides, tapes them together, and one slide was a deer, and one slide was a river, and one slide was a mountain, and one slide was a tree, one slide was a meadow. Tapes them all together, sticks them in the machine, shines light, and they both look at the screen, they're just like, whoa, that's so cool. It is a 5-exposure image of a meadow with a river and a stream and a tree. Okay, you got to be a little creative when you look at it, but it's amazing. Okay, quick, grab the tape, grab the slides, let's put them all together. So they're like, oh, that'll go good with that, and that'll go good with that, and that'll go good with that. And they made sets of 5 to show everybody. And they apologized. They said it's going to be a shorter slideshow. And it's also going to need a bit of creativity, but it's going to have everything in there. That's our analogy. Now, let's look at things from the Kabbalistic perspective here. Okay, before there was something, there was absolutely nothing. And that nothing, for whatever reason, decided to create the world. And it's like a light bulb. I guess that will be the light bulb. That shined a light into the world. So that's a light bulb. And it shines this light into existence. Now that light makes its way through into the world. It's got 10 beams that it breaks into. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's got 10 beams that it shines into. And so you got a light that's now shining into 10 beams, which then it breaks into another realm, which is where those beams actually become more distinguished into things like animals and then I don't know, plants, and then mineral. It's water. And then ultimately, you get to our realm down here, which is the physical world. There's the sun, there's the moon, there's the Big Dipper. Okay? Okay? So this begins the world of space and time. This is finite. Space and time. This is finite. Beyond space and time. Okay? And this is an amazing thing for all of us to like expand our mind into a bit, is that we grew up believing that space and time was, finite, and anything beyond space and time was beyond finite, or the infinite. It's not true at all. There is finite of space and time. Then there is finite that is beyond space and time, but still finite. And then somewhere back here, because don't forget, God's not a light bulb. God created the light source. But somewhere back here, I don't know where you'd put it, because it's everywhere also. But somewhere back here is infinite. Infinite, and obviously beyond space and time. Okay? So there's this whole intermediary realm that exists between space and time and beyond space and time. A whole realm before you even get to infinite. It's a little hard for us to put our minds around that. But our world is just the explicate of an implicate world. Our world is the unfolded of an enfolded world. Is that clear? Meaning there's a whole realm that's right beyond our realm that is enfolded, and it unfolds into our physical realm here. Is that clear? So there's this, it's talked about in English too. This is called the physical, and this is called the metaphysical. Okay? There's a physical, there's a metaphysical world, and then there's God. Now, what do they mean by the universe when they say the universe? If you're a physicist, it means all the galaxies in the space-time continuum. But if you're a spiritual person, whether you're in Judaism or you're in Buddhism, it doesn't matter what they call the universe, they're talking about the entire physical and metaphysical. Jews are only the people audacious enough to believe that you can actually have a relationship with this. Okay? The rest of the world, you're supposed to become one with the universe, which would be all of this, all the way to here. But this being, and people shouldn't make the mistake to think that they don't believe in God. Most Aboriginal cultures that are involved with all kinds of deities in the metaphysical world, we often make the mistake of thinking they don't believe in God. They do believe in God. They just don't believe you can have a relationship with God. And if you think you can, you got a big ego problem if you think this being that's beyond, your wildest imaginations. Because if we if I could somehow give you a pill that you swallow with a cup of water, and you just saw like here, just there, yeah, you'd be freaked out for the rest of your life. You'd be freaked out for the rest of your life. Now, these people who know these traditions, who are all into becoming one with the whole metaphysical world, they've been over there. They know how incredibly intricate these realms are. So they think that's about as far as anyone's ever going to get. And so the Jews come along and say, oh yeah, well guess what? The creator of it all is totally interested in us and actually created us just to have a relationship with it. And they just look at us like, what? Now, how are we supposed to prove our point? What's our proof of that? Meaning, if a guy came and approached, a Hindu master and said, listen, sir, I'm sorry, but you're selling yourself short being at one with the metaphysical and physical, because you could be at one with the creator of it all. And he'll say, yeah, how do you know? There's only one way we know. Answer? Sinai. Sinai is the only time we know. There was never a time before, and there's never been a time since it where God actually said hello. Hello in there. He said hello in there to everybody. He said hello to individuals, but that doesn't matter. And it's true, God has spoken to individuals throughout history, but it doesn't mean anything. It means a lot to him, but it doesn't mean anything to us. Whereas Sinai, God was letting an entire population know that I'm actually totally interested in you. Now let's go into detail. This realm here is where everything is one, totally united as one. When we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God, Hear, O Israel, God is our God, God is one. When we're saying that, we're really talking about here. Okay, that's when we're talking about everything's united, totally united. Now, God chose to create the world with 10 forces. And those 10 forces are totally united here. They're here, but they're all embedded and united in each other. They have not distinguished themselves. They are still totally one. And what God does is from this realm, which we'll call realm 1, in Hebrew it's called Atzilus, is God distinguishes those 10 into existence. And now those 10, which are Chochmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchus, those 10 now create the whole world's being created via these 10. So now God's creating the world via these 10 beams. Now these 10 beams are mentioned in Genesis. And therefore we also know that days are not days yet. Because if God's saying these over a course of what the Torah calls 6 days, when he's really talking about beams that don't even take place in space and time, you know he's not talking about 24-hour days. So the first of them all, as I said, was called Chochmah. That's going to be this first line. That first line, which is called Chochmah, is the beam that doesn't relate to any of the specific things that God created. Rather, that first beam, which is called Chochmah, everyone say the word Chochmah, is the sum total of all the beams. And it's the sum total and sum potential of everything. If you change the words around in Chochmah, it becomes Koach Ma. Koach in Hebrew means strength, but it also means potential. The word Koach means a potential. And Ma means what? Meaning the potential of all possibility is all locked into what's called Chochmah, which we say every morning, Kulam bechochmah asisa. Everything that God created, the whole creation, via this sum potential of everything called Chochmah. And when you open the book of Genesis, the word Chochmah shows up, that first beam shows up with the word Bereshis. The word Bereshis is what is this kind of sum total word. Bereshis is a super heavy nuclear explosive word that has all of creation locked in, kind of like that like condensed matter of those who are big bangers, like that kind of thing. That would be a great example of Chachma, where every bit of potential is connected to that one dense, condensed piece of matter. That's Chachma. But then, if you read on in Genesis, over the next few lines, it keeps saying, let there be this, and let there be that. Let there be earth upon the waters, and let there be vegetation upon the land, and let there be fish, and let there be fowl, and let there be animals. Each one of those let there be's is another one of these beams. There's 9 others. So the first one's Bereshis, and the next 9 are all the let there be's. So, for example, let there be vegetation upon the earth is what is creating the table that's in front of you right now. Let there be vegetation upon the earth is what's creating the cotton inside your clothing right now. Right now, God is saying, let there be vegetation upon the earth, and now there's a table and there's clothing. If God, now listen, this is really important, you guys get this point. You have to know this stuff. This is part of getting your head on straight. If God were to stop saying, let there be vegetation upon the earth for 1 second, then every ounce of vegetation inside this room and outside this room would disappear. These walls are made of wood. Gone. Okay? These tables, gone. You'd just be sitting with a metal frame in front of yourselves. I'd be really happy that I'm wearing wool pants and a wool sweater right now, because I'd lose my undergarments. Okay? Gone. Okay? The rest of you would probably be naked unless you're wearing wool. Okay? Because that's let there be animals upon the earth. The only reason why there's any cotton in the room right now is because God's saying, let there be vegetation upon the earth. Now, why would you have thought otherwise? The reason you would have thought otherwise is because for us, we're not used to having such an intimate relationship with God. We've all been seeing God as someone who, as this being that created the world, not who creates it. But when you look at our Kabbalistic prayers, which we say every morning, when you look at those Kabbalistic prayers, you see it's present tense. Borei or uvorei choshech. Yotzer or uvorei choshech. We say he creates. He creates, not he created, he creates. God is creating you right now into existence and is intimately bound up with that creation at all times. So you're being created right now. And God's right here. Now, why wouldn't we have thought of that? Because we like to have God elsewhere. We like God, putting parasailing in a lot while we're doing our thing. But God is intimately bound up with everything at all times. Now, I got to turn to physics for a few minutes. Let's do some physics. So the physics are as follows. There's something called holograms, and holograms are really interesting things. Holograms come from holographic plates. So like the most famous and first hologram that ever existed was in a movie called Star Wars, where Princess Leia is projected via a holographic projection inside of R2-D2. And she has this message for Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was one of the most famous holograms. Now, what is a hologram? A hologram is a three-dimensional projection. It does not require a screen. It actually exists in 3D. You can walk around it. You can put your hand through it because it's a projection. It's not physical. But it's a three-dimensional projection, no screen required. Now, where does a hologram come from? It comes from a holographic plate. It looks like a slide, like any slide, bigger, but it looks like a slide. And you shine light through that plate, and it creates a 3D image instead of a regular image. Now, here's the amazing thing about a holographic plate. Imagine we had a slide of Austin, just a regular slide. Now, I shine the light through the slide onto this screen. There's Austin. Yeah? Now I take that slide and I cut it in half. No offense. Okay? We'll cut off the lower half. Okay? So we cut off the lower half of the slide. What's still going to be on the screen? Okay, half of Austin. It would be from the waist up. Cut that in half, and now we only have, let's say, from the neck up. So on the screen, you will see Austin's head. Cut that in half of Austin's head. Okay, it's clear? Now, what if it were a holographic plate? First of all, we don't need a screen anymore. So we got a holographic plate. We shine the light through it, and there's Austin 3D. It's much cooler. 3D of Austin. Now, I take that plate, and I cut it in half. What do we have a picture of now that we shine light through it? What do you think? Cut in half. The answer is all of him, three-dimensionally, just lower resolution. Cut in half again. Now we got a quarter. All of him, three-dimensionally, just lower resolution. Cut it in half again. Now we got an eighth of the original. All of Austin, lower resolution. Now we just cut the whole thing away, and all we leave is 1 square millimeter of our original holographic plate. And we shine a laser through it. It's lasers you use. Shine a laser through it. You get all of Austin. What does that tell you about every millimeter or micrometer of that plate? What does it tell you about it? It all has all of the info. It's kind of like DNA. It has all the info of Austin inside of every millimeter of it. This is a fact in physics. We know how to do this. Their holograms are totally creatable today. This is technology that's 40 years old. Holograms. It's really a wondrous thing. It's hard to get the mind around, but what it's called is that on that holographic plate, Austin is a-locational. You get that? He's a-locational. Now, once we shine lasers through the plate, and now Austin's 3D there, now Austin's locational. You can see Austin locationally. He's standing right here in the middle of the room. But he's being beamed from a plate that's a-locational. This whole realm here where the 10 spheros, they're called spheros, these 10 beams, these 10 spheros, are distinguished from each other, is a holographic realm. And how our Kabbalists describe it is quite amazing. You ever seen an electrical cord, like an extension cord, a white extension cord, and you open it up, and it's got 3 wires in it? It's got like a ground and a positive and a neutral line. But it all looked like one cord to begin with until you opened it up. So the 10 spheros in this realm, in this second realm, is totally holographic. So let's say there's 10 spheros, and I want to open up the 4th of the 10. I want to open up the 4th. So I take that 4th wire, right? There's 10 in there. I open up 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I splice it with a razor blade, and I open it up. What's inside there? All 10. All 10 are inside there. And now I want to open up, of those 10, I want to open the 6th one. So I open up the 6th one, and I open that one up. Guess what's inside there? All 10. And now I open up the 8th one in there. And what's inside there? All 10. Do you get how this is holographic? What's going on is totally holographic inside these 10 beams. In this realm, which is called Beriah, the first realm, realm 1, we called it Tzilas. The second realm is called Beriah. In the realm of Beriah, all 10 spheros are inside of every beam. Ad infinitum, I mean, it never stops. It just keeps going and going and going. The point is that if you've noticed, you're sitting in a 3D room. Is that much can we agree on? You're in a 3D room. Why are you in a 3D room right now? Because God is extracting or taking light out. Where's some light? Right? The reason you see my hand shadow on a shirt because I'm removing light. So God is removing light via a holographic realm, which is creating the 3D nature of this room. All I'm trying to do is describe why the world's 3D. Do you get that now? I'm just giving you a very long-winded Kabbalistic explanation of the 3D nature of life. Every part of the hologram has the whole universe in it. So like your fingernail has DNA, so does a hair, so does your saliva, so does your cheek. That's got the whole makeup of your body, but it's also got the whole makeup of the universe. When you're asking where questions about things that are beyond space and time, so space is a where question, and this is outside space. Okay. So there's no where question available here. Where can only be on this side. Here we can talk about where. Here is no longer, so I can't answer the question where. There is no where anymore. Where is only a mental structure for people who live in this fourth realm here. When I said, remember we opened up the fourth wire? So the fourth wire has got its own theme. So and now when I open it up, it's 10 to the fourth theme. It gets like real rocket science at that point. But it's 10 to the fourth theme. And by the way, Kabbalists like really go into this. So they'll be talking to each other about stuff, and they'll be like, oh, that would be 6. It would be 6 in the fourth theme. You know, when describing 6 in the fourth theme. Whatever it is. It's wild stuff. We go through this every Passover till Shavuos is 50 days. And they go through 7 of these beams. Because 49 and then 50 is like the culmination, is Shavuos, the day we got the Torah at Mount Sinai. So those 7 weeks, each week is one of these beams. And then there's the day, which is 7. So one of the 7 days to that beam. So you could have, so I had mentioned that the 6th week is called Yesod. The 6th beam is called Yesod. So the 6th day of the 6th week was the 6-day war in 1967. That began on the 6th day of the 6th week, which is called Yesod Shebe Yesod, 6th of the 6th. So yeah, it gets all like rocket science stuff. Usually Sephardic Kabbalists are more interested in this kind of rocket science, and Ashkenazic Kabbalists are not as interested in that stuff. So here you got infinite being. Absolutely nothing, absolutely everything, projecting light, okay, out of this first realm where the 10 spheres are united. It projects the 10, where the 10 now distinguish themselves in this endlessly networked world of these 10 beams. But then it hits another major shift where the actual beam of let there be vegetation or let there be animals upon the earth, let's say, hits here. And now that beam is now starting to like distinguish itself as animal world kingdom. So there's lamb chop. Yeah, and now what are you going to get here cruising around in South America is lamb chop. Physical lamb chop in space and time. Now lamb chop's got another lamb chop up here in a totally metaphysical realm, which is the end of this whole beam. Now the beam up here is totally connected to the tree, which is connected to the river, you know, which is connected to the lamb chop. But as it goes, it starts to like coalesce into what it's actually creating, which is let there be animals upon the earth. That's the original nuclear vocalization. Let there be animals upon the earth. But later it starts to coalesce until it finally hits lamb chop, the spiritual lamb chop, though. This is a spiritual lamb chop. And then, boop, here's lamb chop, walking around. Yeah, there's lamb chop, cruising around a meadow in, Argentina. Okay? And here's a tree, so it's like, let there be vegetation upon the earth. Ding. And now, there's a physical tree in our world. This is the 4th level. Okay? 1. All beams united. 2, beams distinguish themselves but are holographic by nature. 3, this is the metaphysical realm. That is, these are all metaphysical, but this realm is where that actual beam hits its desired being, which is an angelic form. It's the angelic form of the tree. And that angelic form of the tree ultimately pops out as a tree right here in North America. There's things you can connect to this. This is Yud, this is Hey, this is Vav, this is Hey. This is the sacrifices, the offerings we say every morning. This is the Psukkah de Zimra. This is the Shema and its blessings. And this is the silent meditation. And the Kaddish between each one is an elevator to take you from realm to, every time we say Kaddish, takes you to the next one. Okay? These are the levels of the soul. There's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechidas out there. Okay? There's a lot of stuff to connect to it. But that particular one's more how we study the Torah. There's 4 levels of Torah study.